Last year, we couldn't go 5 seconds of television without getting one of these thrown in our face. Last year, we couldn't watch 5 minutes of League Pass without getting one of these thrown in our face. They couldn't go to commercial break without throwing one of these in our face.
The WNBA is staring down a storm bigger than anything it ever expected. For years, league leaders leaned on powerhouse partners like Disney through ESPN and ABC to keep the ship steady. Then Amazon stepped in, adding streaming muscle and a modern edge. But now, those quiet rumors of cracks behind the scenes have erupted into full-scale sirens. Reports say both Disney and Amazon are second-guessing their commitment, weighing major cutbacks, or even pulling out entirely from future broadcast deals. And without those lifelines, the league isn't just at risk of losing exposure. It could also lose the massive payouts that have been the fuel keeping it alive.
No Caitlin Clark. These companies wipe their hands of the WNBA. They're not gonna put time, they're not gonna put effort, they're not gonna put money.
And here's the twist. Fans who were used to non-stop WNBA promos, highlight reels, and feature spots are now met with nothing but silence. The conversation has shifted. It's no longer about whether Caitlin Clark alone can carry the league. The real question is far harsher. Can the WNBA even survive without the heavyweight support of those corporate giants? And truthfully, the answer might be a lot uglier than anyone inside the league wants to face.
A Nike commercial other than a Gatorade commercial. How many commercials have you seen of companies putting WNBA players as the face of their commercial? I can't think of one.
When it comes to whether a pro league can actually survive long term, it always circles back to one thing: broadcast rights. In today's sports world, TV deals aren't just extra income, they're the foundation everything rests on. Look at the NFL, the NBA, even MLB. Networks shovel in billions because they know fans will show up, and that steady stream of money fuels the entire system. It doesn't just cover player salaries, it keeps leagues front and center, attracts sponsors, and makes sure the games are everywhere you look. But here's where the WNBA stands apart. For decades, they've had to rely on corporate giants like Disney through ESPN and ABC just to get their product in front of casual viewers. The strategy was simple: more eyeballs could finally push the league into mainstream territory. And yet, that's also where the foundation started to crack. Then came last season. Caitlin Clark burst onto the scene, instantly pulling the kind of national attention the WNBA had been chasing for years. ESPN wasted no time riding that wave, highlighting her every move, promoting fever matchups, and squeezing every ounce of momentum out of her rise.
That CarMax commercial, they ran that all Caitlin Clark's senior year at Iowa. They ran that all through the draft. They ran that all through last year. They ran that all through this year's draft, but we haven't seen it since Caitlin Clark has been down.
Those numbers didn't just improve, they shattered records, standing as some of the most historic the WNBA had ever seen. Suddenly, fans who had never once paid attention to the league were tuning in. Ticket prices skyrocketed, jerseys were flying off the shelves, and even TV ratings started surpassing other established sports. For a moment, it felt like the WNBA had finally broken through. But here's the twist: this surge wasn't spread evenly across the league. It wasn't about every team or every star. It was almost entirely built around Caitlin Clark, and when she went down with that season-ending injury, the momentum collapsed overnight. Games that had pulled in over 1 million viewers suddenly sank to a few 100,000. ESPN, which had been dedicating entire First Take and SportsCenter segments to her highlights, barely mentioned other games at all. Once again, without Clark on the court, the WNBA slipped back into the shadows of mainstream sports coverage.
WNBA players are back to being ignored by corporations and companies. They're back to being in obscurity. With Caitlin Clark, rising tide lifts all boats, and she was the tide that lifted them.
The hype didn't just slow down, it completely crashed. And you know who picked up on it right away? The corporations. Take Disney, for example. They're not in the game of pouring resources into sports that can't deliver consistent ratings. For them, the WNBA was pitched as a long-term play, a chance to champion diversity while keeping advertisers happy. But here's the brutal truth: advertisers don't cut checks for feel-good messaging. They pay for numbers, for guaranteed eyeballs. And the second Caitlin Clark was sidelined, that momentum disappeared. Overnight, those $1 million ad spots tied to WNBA broadcasts lost a huge chunk of their value.
Ticket sales from $89 per ticket prior to Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury?
So when ticket prices crashed by 30%, dropping to around $62 a seat, that's when the first real whispers began. Disney might actually walk away from its deal altogether. As for Amazon, their interest in women's basketball was never sentimental. Streaming giants are fighting for live events because it's one of the last things people still watch in real time. But here's the catch. Amazon tracks every number, and if those streams don't perform, they won't hesitate to pull the plug and stop pouring money into it.
Let's talk about some of these ratings real quick. Fever Mercury from last Tuesday, 310,000. Fever Mystics from last Sunday, 270,000. The Fever Mystics on NBA TV got outdrew by women's college volleyball on the Big Ten Network. Oh boy. Wing Sparks, the game right after, 130,000. And the finale between the Sky and the Aces did 90,000.
Reports are already hinting that Amazon's top brass is questioning whether the WNBA is really worth the investment. And here's the danger. If Disney walks away and Amazon follows, the league doesn't just lose exposure, it loses the very lifeline keeping it afloat. And that's only the start of the unraveling, because once those TV deals disappear, it's not just about missing out on broadcast money, it spills over into sponsorships, commercial deals, and ultimately the league's relevance itself. Without that network support, everything else begins to crumble.
And that goes into why they held off so long in announcing Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, because they knew people would stop showing up. They knew the excitement and the interest would wind down.
Now, let's break down the clearest sign of just how shaky the WNBA's position really is. Advertising. Commercials aren't filler. They're proof that corporations believe in a product enough to pour millions into putting their brand right beside it. Last season, you couldn't flip on ESPN or League Pass without being hit with ad after ad featuring WNBA stars. Aja Wilson was everywhere for CarMax. Sabrina Ionescu starred in lighthearted State Farm spots. Sue Bird seemed to have a permanent place on your screen. Those campaigns weren't just selling cars or insurance. They were selling the idea that the WNBA was finally surging. But that illusion has faded. With Caitlin Clark sidelined and ratings crashing, those same commercials have all but disappeared. CarMax has gone quiet. State Farm, which once plastered Liberty stars in every national campaign, has barely shown the league at all. Fans who used to joke about memorizing those ads can't even remember the last time they saw one. That's not an accident. Corporations chase momentum, and right now, the WNBA doesn't have it. Just look at Paige Buckers. Her ad isn't being blasted during primetime on ABC. It's tucked away on League Pass, seen only by the diehards already watching. That's not mainstream exposure, that's containment. Sponsors aren't betting on the league, they're betting on Clark. And when she's not playing, the money evaporates. That's why Disney and Amazon are nervous. If advertisers are already pulling back, why would networks keep giving the WNBA premium slots? Broadcasting games without ad money to back it isn't just a gamble, it's a guaranteed loss. ESPN lives on ad revenue, and when those commercials vanish, executives don't see progress or diversity, they see empty dollars. The disappearance of CarMax and State Farm spots is a massive warning sign. It proves the hype wasn't league-wide growth, it was corporate virtue signaling, riding on Clark's momentum. And the message this sends to casual fans is even worse. Last year, the non-stop wave of WNBA ads made it feel like the league was breaking into the mainstream. This year, silence. Out of sight, out of mind. Without constant ad reinforcement, casual fans forget. And when they forget, ratings collapse. Players can talk about progress all they want, but behind the scenes, corporations are pulling back fast. Disney and Amazon are just the biggest names feeling the pressure. If the sponsors leave, the networks won't be far behind. And if the networks pull out, the WNBA doesn't just shrink, it risks losing the stage altogether. That's when the real panic sets in. But here's the thing, advertising is only one piece of the puzzle, because what's coming next is even worse. The complete collapse of ratings once Clark isn't there to carry the load. Television ratings never sugarcoat the truth. They're the raw numbers networks and advertisers live by when deciding what's worth their money. For the WNBA, Caitlin Clark's rookie season was supposed to be the big breakthrough, and for a brief moment it looked like it was. Fever games cracked over 1 million viewers on ESPN, sometimes even outdrawing Major League Baseball. Clips went viral, highlights trended, and the league finally had its first true national draw. But the surge didn't last. The second Clark went down with a season season-ending injury, the bottom fell out. Fever games without her dropped into the 200 to 300,000 range, with some broadcasts being outperformed by women's college volleyball, a sport with a fraction of the WNBA's resources or promotion. Even NBA TV matchups that Clark had lifted above 500,000 viewers last year sank to half that without her presence. And no, it wasn't just bad scheduling. The Fever had already proven they could hold their own against NFL games in prime time. The reality is simple: when Clark isn't on the floor, fans tune out. For Disney, that's a nightmare. ESPN can't justify giving prime coverage to games pulling under 300,000 viewers when other sports consistently deliver 3 or 4 times as much. Every broadcast without Clark means lost ad revenue, and networks hate bleeding money. That's why executives are already asking whether keeping the deal is even worth it. Amazon has the same problem. Live sports are supposed to be streaming's crown jewel, the one kind of programming people will still watch live instead of on demand. But the WNBA doesn't bring steady numbers. It brings Caitlin Clark numbers. Everything else is a steep drop-off, and that inconsistency makes it impossible to build a reliable streaming package around the league. Why pay premium money if only one player guarantees an audience? This is the bigger issue. Clark's rise exposed how fragile the WNBA's foundation really is. For years, league leaders insisted visibility was the only problem, that if more people just had the chance to watch, they'd fall in love. Clark gave them that opportunity, and while fans showed up for her, they didn't stick around for everyone else. The crash in viewership proves the interest isn't spreading. It's concentrated almost entirely on one player, and networks know it. That's why Disney and Amazon's hesitation is so dangerous. These ratings aren't just dipping, they're collapsing without Clark, and if they don't stabilize, the WNBA could lose its biggest broadcast partners altogether. But the fallout doesn't stop with TV deals. The next warning sign hits even closer to home, in a place fans can see for themselves: ticket sales and empty arenas. If ratings are the heartbeat, ticket sales are the visible pulse, and nothing screams decline louder than vacant seats. Not long ago, Indiana Fever tickets were the hottest item in town. Prices on the resale market soared as Caitlin Clark mania took over. Fans were shelling out close to $250 a seat just to see her in person. For the first time in years, scalpers were actually making real money off WNBA tickets. But that moment disappeared almost overnight after Clark's injury. Average ticket prices for Fever games plunged from nearly $90 down to just above $60. On paper, that's a 30% collapse, but the reality is far worse. Many fans who bought in at full price are now dumping tickets at bargain basement rates, taking huge losses. Imagine paying $250 for a lower bowl seat and being forced to resell it for $62. That's not a deal, that's desperation. And it's not just about dollars, it's about energy. When fans stop showing up, the atmosphere inside arenas dies with them. Empty seats don't just hurt ticket revenue, they ripple through every stream of income. Concession sales plummet, merchandise gathers dust, local sponsors see no reason to invest, stadium parking lots stay half empty, and nearby bars and restaurants lose the game day rush. The entire ecosystem around the WNBA suffers. Here's the kicker: this is exactly why the league dragged its feet on announcing Clark's season-ending status. They knew the moment it became official, ticket sales would crater. Every extra day they kept the news under wraps was another day to squeeze short-term revenue from fans still hoping to see her play. This wasn't an accident, it was a business move. The WNBA, fully aware of the financial disaster Clark's absence would cause, delayed confirming what everyone suspected. They cashed in on fan loyalty, even though they knew the excitement would collapse once the truth came out. Sure, it bought them a little time, but it also revealed just how desperate the league really is. And the fallout has been brutal. Fans who spent hundreds of dollars feel deceived. Resellers who bought in bulk got burned when prices tanked. Local businesses that banked on packed game day crowds saw sales dry up. In trying to protect the bottom line, the league may have done permanent damage to its trust. The league may have just pushed away the very group it can't afford to lose: its most loyal, paying supporters. And it's not just fans taking notice. Broadcasters like Disney and Amazon are watching closely too. For them, credibility is everything. If a league looks like it's hiding information or manipulating its audience for profit, that becomes a liability. Advertisers don't want their brands linked to controversy, and networks don't want to be stuck cleaning up the backlash. So when Disney sits down to decide whether to renew WNBA rights. This kind of stunt factors in. Do they really want to sink millions into a league that survives on smoke, mirrors, and delay tactics? At its core, this whole situation exposes just how fragile the WNBA's business really is. One player's injury should never be enough to crater ticket sales, TV ratings, sponsorships, and fan trust all at once. Yet that's exactly what happened, because Caitlin Clark had become the league's golden ticket. By dragging out her status, the league basically admitted how dangerously dependent it had become, and that dependency is now nudging Disney and Amazon closer to pulling out. The damage goes further. Fans aren't just upset, they're doubtful. Even when Clark eventually returns, many will wonder if they can trust anything the league says. Once doubt creeps in, it lingers. And for a league still fighting to prove it belongs on the big stage, broken trust is a nightmare. That leaves the looming question: can the WNBA survive if its entire foundation is built on one player? Or will Disney and Amazon decide the gamble isn't worth it and step away before the whole illusion collapses? For years, league leaders repeated the same line: if the WNBA just had more visibility, the fans would follow. They insisted the only thing holding women's basketball back was lack of exposure. Put the games on ESPN, stream them on Amazon, showcase the players in commercials, and suddenly the league would break into the mainstream. And for a moment, Caitlin Clark made it look true. Cameras followed her everywhere. Social media couldn't stop replaying her highlights. Ratings spiked in ways the league had never seen. But when she went down, the illusion shattered. The buzz didn't spread across the league. It stayed locked on her. That's the heart of the WNBA's marketing problem. It isn't selling the league, it's selling one player. Disney knows it, Amazon knows it, sponsors know it, and fans feel it too. Even the commercials featuring Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, or Sue Bird only resonated because Clark's hype made the league feel relevant for a fleeting moment. Once Clark was sidelined, those flashy campaigns dried up, and just like that, the WNBA slipped back into familiar territory, struggling to stay relevant in the wider sports world. For Disney, that's a nightmare scenario. When ESPN pushes the NBA, NFL, or MLB, it's selling entire leagues stacked with stars. Viewers can tune in for LeBron, Curry, Giannis, and a dozen more. But in the WNBA, casual fans only show up for Caitlin Clark, and that's not a model you can build around. If Disney keeps pouring millions into broadcast rights, they're gambling on one player's health. Ratings soar when Clark's on the floor, but the second she's out, the numbers tank. That volatility makes advertisers skittish and networks wary. Amazon's staring down the same problem. Streaming platforms live on consistency. If one matchup draws 1 million views and the next barely clears 200,000, there's no foundation to build momentum. Investors don't want risk, and right now, the WNBA is all risk. Even players within the league feel it. They talk about growth, but deep down, they know Clark is the engine behind ticket sales, jersey revenue, and national headlines. Without her, everything dims. That's the bitter truth the league can't escape. The WNBA wanted to prove the game itself was enough to carry the spotlight. Instead, all it's proven is that one superstar can cover its flaws, at least temporarily. And this is why Disney and Amazon's hesitation feels like a breaking point. If the WNBA can't market itself beyond Clark, then why should networks keep investing? If those media giants pull back, the illusion of momentum shatters overnight. The league would be left exposed, staring at an uncomfortable reality. It has built its identity on one player. That's not a foundation, it's a house of cards. And with that structure collapsing, the league's panic goes beyond TV contracts. This is about survival. Every sports league eventually faces a crossroads where hype and slogans aren't enough anymore. For the WNBA, that moment is now. With Disney and Amazon considering walking away, the league faces its harshest truth yet. Without major broadcast partners, there might not be a national stage left. For years, executives believed corporate backing would shield them. Disney gave legitimacy, Amazon gave innovation. Together, they kept the WNBA in the spotlight. But if they walk, there's no safety net. Those corporate deals weren't gifts, they were investments. And every investment expects a return. The harsh reality is that nearly all of the WNBA's return has been tied to Caitlin Clark. Her meteoric rise created the illusion of league-wide growth, but the second she went down, the truth came out. Ratings cratered, ticket sales nosedived, sponsors backed off, the buzz vanished overnight. Disney and Amazon don't need to sift through PR spin or league statements to see what's happening. The numbers are already screaming the verdict. For Disney, every underperforming broadcast eats up airtime that could be filled with far more profitable sports. Advertisers aren't aren't patient. They want consistent results. And right now, the WNBA can't deliver them. For Amazon, the math is even clearer. If women's basketball can't consistently draw viewers, then the entire streaming experiment becomes a money pit. These threats to walk away aren't bluffs. They're warnings. The networks are running out of patience, and the WNBA is running out of time. That's what makes this moment so dangerous. It shows just how unprepared the league is to stand on its own. Without those broadcast deals, the WNBA doesn't just lose exposure, it loses its financial backbone. No TV money means shrinking salaries, dwindling sponsorships, and franchise owners who are already struggling suddenly sinking deeper into debt. Expansion? That dream turns into a joke. Instead of adding teams, the league could be scrambling just to keep the ones it has alive. And here's the brutal truth. There is no backup plan. Ticket sales, merch, and local promotions can't sustain a league of this scale. Without Disney and Amazon writing checks, the entire operation risks collapsing. Fans who thought they were witnessing the start of a new golden age may soon realize they were watching a temporary surge powered by a single superstar. The WNBA has always wanted to prove it belongs as a permanent force in American sports. But unless something changes quickly, this era could be remembered not as a beginning, but as the peak before the downfall. If Disney and Amazon walk away, this won't just be about optics or headlines. It'll be about survival, and survival at this point is anything but guaranteed. For a fleeting moment, Caitlin Clark gave the league the appearance of unstoppable momentum. Sold out arenas, skyrocketing ratings, and sponsors lined up to cash in. But appearances don't last forever. With Clark out, all that supposed momentum has crumbled, laying bare just how much the league leans on a single star. Now, Disney and Amazon, the very partners keeping the WNBA visible on national platforms, are signaling they might pull the plug. And without their backing, the dominoes start to fall fast. Sponsors retreat, ratings sink even lower, and the league's shaky foundation begins to give way. The message from fans, advertisers, and networks couldn't be louder. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA fades into the background. And if those broadcast giants decide to walk away, professional women's basketball could be staring down a collapse it may never recover from.